Hi, I'm Alex Dunn, Millionaire Grant Lady. Thank you for joining me for this session of micro learning where we're going to be talking about why I love private foundation grants. As you're building your nonprofit and increasing your funding so that you can serve more people and serve the community and do all of the things that you got into this industry to do, you need to know that there are three main types of grants. There are federal grants that come from the federal government. There are state and local government grants that come from your state and local governments. And then there's private foundation money. And this comes from private foundations that are operated outside of the government. And so private foundation funding is my favorite kind of funding to recommend for most of the nonprofits that I talk to. Federal grant funding, let's talk about for a second. It's true. The commercials you see are true. The federal government does give hundreds of millions of dollars in grants every single year. It is a large source of funding for organizations in America. However, federal grant funding is very hard to get. It's very competitive, and it has many, many strings attached that makes it not a good option for many organizations. So when it comes to federal grants, they're very competitive. They might make 10 or 15 awards across the whole country. And there are organizations that are large. There are organizations that are industry leaders that are known nationally that are applying for those grants. And so they are very competitive. If you're not a large organization or you're not an organization that's known as an expert in your field, you're probably not going to get a federal grant. Another thing about federal grants is that they are very complicated to complete and compile and submit. Most federal grant applications are more than 100 pages long with attachments, and they require a significant amount of time to develop. They are very stringent in what they want you to do with the money. A federal grant will say, we want somebody to do X, Y, and Z, and you have to tell them that you are going to do X, Y, and Z. You can't tell them that you're going to do A, B, and C unless you don't want to get funded. What they're looking for is only X, Y, or Z. So the funding is not very flexible and not available to all types of organizations. Federal grants also, if you get the award, they're very hard to administer on the back end. So you have to have significant infrastructure within your organization financially in tracking the funds. You have to have significant infrastructure programmatically in tracking outcomes and doing reports very often. And so they're just a lot of federal grants, you have to hire somebody, a full-time person, just to manage that grant, and that's all they do. And so that's not a very good option for most nonprofits. For most nonprofits, what I recommend are private foundation funding. And private foundation funding is much better for a few reasons. First of all, it's a much quicker turnaround on when you're going to find out if you got the funding or not. So for a federal grant, you're applying this year for money that you're going to get next year. Private foundation grants, you can usually hear back if you're going to get the funding in 2 to 6 months is the industry average. Private foundation grants are usually much more flexible in the type of funding that they offer. So whereas with a federal grant, you can only tell them that you're going to do X, Y, and Z. In a foundation grant, you will probably be able to tell them, I want to do A, B, and C. And they are much more flexible in evaluating what it is that they're looking for. The third reason is that foundation grants are much easier to administer, both financially and reporting wise, and they usually don't require you hiring additional staff just to manage them. And so those are the three reasons why I think that foundation grants are better for most of the nonprofit organizations that I talk to. And so that can be a great way to direct your efforts as you're looking to grow your programs. If you need more information on how to increase your foundation grant funding, you can check out my website, www.millionairegrantlady.com. I've got some free resources there that can be useful to you. And then if you are looking for help in increasing your grant funding, you can also schedule a call with me there. All right, thank you so much, you guys. Dream big, do good work. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.